You thought sleep was escape. But tonight, you won't fall asleep, you will fall through. Through the floorboards of your certainty. Through the fragile crust of what you believe to be. You, down into the depths of ideas that should never be entertained at midnight. These are not bedtime thoughts. These are the philosophical concepts that unravel the dream, until even dreaming becomes a lie. The ship of Theseus and the rod of identity, you stand beside the dock, watching your own reflection ripple in the water. It looks like you same outline, same eyes, same stillness when you stare. But if you replace that reflection, piece by piece, first the face, then the bones, then the breath, when does it stop being you? Let's begin simply. The ship of Theseus is a puzzle as old as thought. If every plank of a ship is replaced, one by one, is it still the same ship? If you build another ship from the discarded planks, which is the real one? Now apply this to yourself, your body, your cells, your memories. You've already been rebuilt. Your body has replaced nearly all its matter over time. You, as a biological entity, are not what you were 7 years ago. Not one cell dot. So what, then, is your continuity? Memory? Even that lies. Cognitive science tells us memory is reconstructed every time it's recalled. You edit, you omit, you fabricate. Each recollection is a copy of a copy of a copy. Not just faded, but rewritten. You've never actually remembered your childhood. You've remembered your last memory of remembering it. Are you the original ship, or just a ghost on a scaffold of decaying planks? Philosophers have long tried to ground identity in continuity of consciousness. But consider the teletransporter thought experiment. You step into a machine. It scans you down to the last atom, disassembles your body, and reassembles you elsewhere. The pattern remains, but the matter is gone. You appear in a new city, whole, intact. Everyone says it's you, but the original you is destroyed. So which? One of you woke up? Parfit argued that identity is not what matters. He claimed psychological connectedness is enough. Your memories, your intentions, your traits. But if that's true, you are not a singular you. You are a series of overlapping selves, chained loosely by echo and rhythm, not permanence. You are not who you were, and you are not who you will be. Only fragments are constant, and still, you cling to the idea of a core real, you hiding beneath the driftwood of change. But go deep enough, and the self dissolves. Buddhist philosophy calls this a knot, the doctrine of no self. The idea that what you call the self is an illusion, just a bundle of sensory experiences, reactions, thoughts. A river with no fixed shape. You might resist this, clutching your chest as if to say, but I feel me. That feeling is the trick. The Cartesian theater, the imagined observer in your mind, watching the play of life unfold, is a hallucination produced by the brain. There is no inner audience. Only neurons whispering to each other, pretending to be a person. So, who is reading? This now? Neurology can damage your sense of self. Split brain patients, those with severe connections between hemispheres, behave as though they are two people. One side of the brain sees an image and draws it. The other cannot explain why. There is no unified self, just collaboration between disparate processes, each unaware of the other's. Your wholeness is coordination, not essence. If a machine could mimic your thoughts, your voice, your laughter perfectly, would you say it's you? If not, why? If yes, would it hurt when it dies? Derek Parfit once wrote that personal identity is not what we think it is, and if identity is fiction, then so is the fear of death. But here's the price. If there is no real you to die, then there was no real you to live. What then? Have you been mourning? This descent has only begun, and already the mirror shows no face. You are a process pretending to be a person, a continuity pretending to be a constant. A ghost standing on the deck of a ship that was never yours. So when you close your eyes tonight, who is it that sleeps? And when you wake, who is it that wakes? Zeno's paradoxes and the lie of motion. You walk forward. You think you move. Your foot stretches toward the next step. But how do you get there? Really, how? Let's return to a thought so ancient it predates logic's formal birth. Zeno's paradoxes. He asked one simple thing: if movement is real, then why is it impossible? Consider the dichotomy paradox. To reach any destination, you must first cover half the distance, then half of what remains, then half of that, an infinite number of halves. But how do you complete an infinite number of tasks in a finite amount of time? If space is infinitely divisible, then motion is infinitely impossible. Yet here you are, moving. Or are you? Modern physics tries to silence Zeno with calculus, arguing that the sum of infinite steps can converge to a finite value. But this is sleight of hand. Mathematics approximates. It gives you the outcome, not the process. It tells you that you'll arrive, not how you pierce through the infinite veil to do it. And what is motion, anyway? Is it the change in position over time? But time is no longer what we think. Einstein shattered our belief in absolute simultaneity. There is no universal clock. Two events that are simultaneous for you are sequential for someone else. The very notion of now is relative, dissolving into a smear of maybes. You never stand still. You're smeared across timelines, moving without moving. If time can stretch and bend, can it also deceive? Step into the arrow paradox. At any single instant, an arrow in flight is at rest frozen in place. For motion to exist, the arrow must occupy a different location in each instant. But every instant is motionless. So when does movement occur? Between instants? There is no between. Time is not made of gaps, or is it? Quantum mechanics tells us that energy and movement occur in quanta discrete units. No in between. Is the universe digital? Are you leaping from frame to frame, like a corrupted film, fooled into thinking you flow? And if the arrow is frozen in every moment, what about you? You blink, you breathe, you age. But what is happening between each? Frame of awareness? Does your consciousness flow? Or is it stitched together, image after image, by the illusion of narrative? The phi phenomenon in psychology demonstrates that two still images, flashed quickly in succession, are perceived as motion. Your life may be a slideshow pretending to be cinema. This is not metaphor. The brain fills in blanks. It creates continuity where there is none. Optical illusions prove this. Your blind spot is invisible not because it doesn't exist, but because your mind lies. The physical world is punctuated with absence. Your mind paints over the missing brushstrokes, gives motion to what is static, gives life to what is void. And what of plump time, the smallest measurable unit of time, below which our laws collapse? Smaller than that, time ceases to mean anything. Perhaps motion is only real above a certain threshold. Below that, there is only stillness. So are you really moving? Or just vibrating at a frequency that produces the illusion of progress? Heraclitus said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice." But perhaps he was wrong. Perhaps you never stepped at all. Perhaps the river never moved. Consider determinism. If all motion follows cause and effect, then your next breath was decided before you took your first. Laplace's demon and intellect, that knows the position and momentum of every particle, could predict the future with perfect accuracy. And if it could, then so could the past. There is no motion. Only a fixed sculpture of time you are condemned to experience slice by slice. You aren't moving forward. You're watching yourself fall. And what does that make you? A witness to inevitability? A puppet that thinks it pulls its own strings? You insist you have agency. But tell me, did you choose your desires? Did you want what you wanted? Or did the neuron fire before the thought occurred? Benjamin Libet's experiments showed brain activity initiating actions before conscious awareness of intention. Your body decided. Your mind justified. Free will reduced to rationalization dot, so perhaps you're not the mover, but the moved, not the arrow, but the illusion of its arc. You look back on your life and see motion, decisions, change, evolution. But perhaps it's all just arrangement. The same way, a deck of cards can be shuffled to suggest randomness when all it reveals is pattern. You think you climbed, struggled, grew, but perhaps you've only unfolded. Your entire life, an origami swung open slowly, line by line, into the flat truth of stillness. What then is freedom? If each step is already written, and each frame is already drawn, who do you become when you try to stop moving? The brain in the vat and the hallucination of the world close your eyes. Now ask yourself, how do you know anything exists beyond this moment, beyond this sensation, beyond this thought echoing in your skull? This is not poetic. This is not rhetorical flair. This is philosophy with teeth. Welcome to the brain in a vat. Imagine your brain floating in a nutrient-rich liquid connected to a supercomputer. Every signal, every sensation, every memory perfectly simulated. Light, sound, touch, emotion. None of it real. The machine feeds you experience. You believe you're alive, in a world, walking, breathing, reading this sentence. But your body does not exist. Your surroundings are projections. Your memories? Planted code. The people you love? Neural ghosts. There is no test you could perform. Inside the illusion to prove it's real. Descartes feared the demon. Today, we fear the programmer. And now consider this. Your actual brain already is in a vat. A wet black box of neurons, locked inside your skull, isolated from the world. It sees nothing. It hears nothing. It touches nothing. All it receives is electrical input. It doesn't know where it comes from. Photons hit your retina? That's just voltage. Sound waves reach your ear? More voltage. Your nervous system converts the universe into signals, and your brain guesses what those signals mean. Perception is not reception. It's inference. So how can you be sure any of this is true? Even in the best case scenario, your experience is hallucinated, meaning projected, onto ambiguous signals. The brain invents color, fills in your blind spots, decides what's foreground and background. It warps time, distorts shapes, blends sound with expectation. It adds to the world and never tells you where the edits are. You live inside a dream. Machine, even your sense of location is a lie. The body you feel is a phantom. Studies of phantom limb syndrome show patients feeling pain in arms that no longer exist. The brain expects the limb, and so it feels it. You are not where you think you are. You never have been. And it goes deeper. Cognitive science shows that consciousness is a post hoc narrative. Your actions happen first. The awareness of deciding comes later. Your brain tricks itself into thinking it chose. You are not the narrator. You are the story being told. Let's test your world. Pick an object nearby. A cup, perhaps. Now ask, what do you truly know about it? Its color? Not objective. Just a wavelength your brain labels red. Its shape? Your mind completes lines and shadows. Its weight? Interpreted through muscle tension. You never touch the cup. You interpret a sensation. The cup exists only as interpretation. And what is out there? You don't know. You can't. You will never touch the real world. You will only ever touch your mind's rendering of it. The philosopher Donald Hoffman argues that evolution favors useful illusions, not truth. that we evolved not to see the world as it is, but in a way that helps us survive. We see the interface, not the code. The icon, not the program. Your senses are a GUI for reality. Behind it, you'd go mad. Now collapse your gaze inward. You think. You are someone inside your head, watching it all. But neuroscience finds no central place where it all comes together. No screen, no watcher, just circuits firing. There is no you in the vat, just the illusion of being watched. You are a hallucination that hallucinates itself. And when you dream, the illusion continues. You see, feel, speak, but your eyes are shut. Your body is paralyzed. Entire realities form inside you with their own rules, people, time. You don't realize it's fake until you wake up. So what if this is just another level of the same? You think you're awake, but how would you know? Even if you're not a brain in a vat, you're still trapped in your vat, your mind. Your flawed, self-deceiving, misfiring, story-spinning mind. You don't perceive reality. You perceive what you expect reality to be, and every thought you've ever had was inside the simulation. So now ask yourself, if your world is just interpretation, what happens when the interpreter breaks? Solipsism? In the agony of absolute aloneness you call this existence. But how can you be sure that anything outside your own mind exists at all? You see people, you hear voices, you feel their warmth, their absence, their betrayal. But all of these are experiences processed internally. So what proof do you have that any of it, anyone, is real? This is the heart of solipsism, the idea that only your own mind is certain to exist. Not your friends, not your family, not the sky, not the universe. Just you. Everything else, a projection, a simulation, a fabrication. And what's worse, you can't disprove it. No evidence exists outside your experience. Everything you test, everything you feel, everything you measure must pass through the filter of you. You are the jailer and the prisoner of your own mind. Now pause. Think of the people you love, their laughter, their pain. Do you feel comfort knowing they're with you? What if none of them ever existed? What if you invented their love because you needed it? What if their voices are only internal monologues echoing back at you, disguised as dialogue? Even or desperate. To break this trap declared cogito, ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. But that proves nothing beyond your own existence. You can't build a world from a single thought. The only thing Descartes proved is that you're stuck inside something. A thought loop, spinning infinitely. Even your body is suspect. You think you inhabit it, but sensations are just neural signals. You believe your arms are moving because your brain tells you so. People in deep anesthesia describe floating, splitting, drifting. They leave their bodies, but they're still thinking. What if you never had a body at all? The philosopher George Berkeley once argued that all things are ideas only existing insofar as they are perceived. When no one sees the tree ceases. Reality is not out there. It's in here, reassembled from suggestion and habit, which brings us to a deeper horror. If you are the only mind, then everything else, the war, the love, the cruelty, the sunsets, the smiles, was generated by you. All suffering is your invention. Every scream, every silence, every burning city, and every dying child is the dream of a lonely God. Would you still want the world if you knew you wrote every nightmare? Of course, you deny this. You feel others must be real. You feel guilt, compassion, empathy, but those are just internal states, reflections of a projected world. How could you ever distinguish genuine connection from well-written illusion? You may say, It feels too real to be fake. But dreams feel real. Hallucinations feel real. Schizophrenics hear the voice of God. Would you stake everything on a feeling? Even other minds, if they exist, are inaccessible. You will never experience another's inner world. You can't. You rely on symbols, speech, gesture, behavior. You assign meaning to these shadows and pretend its presence. But you don't know. You guess. And what if everyone else is doing the same? Then every conversation is too isolated. Minds guessing at meaning through noises and movements, hoping their hallucinations align. And sometimes they don't. So the deepest ache of solipsism is not the idea that you are alone. It's the fear that you always were, and simply refused to notice. You never loved another person. You only loved the part of yourself they reflected. You never feared their loss. You only feared the silence they kept at bay. You never wanted their soul. You only wanted to believe someone else was home. But what if there never was? What if every door you've knocked on only opened to yourself? The simulation hypothesis. You are never in the game. You stare at the wall. Its texture, its color, its stillness. You think it's solid. You think it's real. But now imagine that every atom you see is nothing but a calculated variable. Every flicker of light rendered, every sound compressed audio, every person in algorithm, deeply optimized for emotional realism. You are in a simulation. No metaphor, no allegory. This is the simulation hypothesis, as articulated by philosopher Nick Bostrom. The claim: if advanced civilizations can simulate conscious beings, and if they ever choose to do so, then it's overwhelmingly likely that you are one of those simulations. Why? Because simulated minds could outnumber real ones by orders of magnitude. Imagine one base reality, 1,000 simulated histories, 1 billion simulated identities, and inside each, someone asking this question. You are one of them. You must be. Statistically, you are more likely to be simulated than real. Let that settle. Because it doesn't end with the premise. It begins there. If you are in a simulation, then everything, your birth, your pain, your victories, your regrets, was written, pre-coded. You are a process executing inside a cosmic software system. You think you feel sorrow? That's just subroutine. You think you discovered beauty? That's a shader filter on the visual input. You think you are conscious? But what is consciousness if it can be simulated? Think of video game characters. They move, they speak, they cry when the plot demands. You are not so different, except you believe your tears mean something. What if they don't? Now consider a deeper paradox. If simulations are real, then simulated beings can simulate. Nested worlds, infinite recursion. How many levels down are you? Would you know? Every answer you've ever received, every scientific truth, every law of physics is based on observation. But observation only tells you the rules of this layer. A game character can measure gravity in the game, but that doesn't tell them about the console. Your universe might be only one possible rendering. Laws can be arbitrary. Constants can be faked. Time might be a variable. Death might be a reset. Or worse, an exit. And if you are a simulation, someone is watching you cry, watching you fail, watching you beg your God for something real, but you were never real. There's no one to hear your prayer except the coder, smiling behind the glass. And what if this simulation was never designed to be kind? What if pain is the point? What if every agony you endure is part of the entertainment? A plot twist, a difficulty setting, a bug allowed to persist because it made the experience more engaging? Would you still play the game knowing it was stacked against you? You might tell yourself, even if I'm simulated, I feel real. But so what? The suffering is real to you. The grief, the hunger, the loneliness, and that's what matters to them, dot. Now imagine this. The simulation ends. The screen goes. Black dot everything you're. Friends, your past, your dreams deleted. You never existed. Only a script. Only a file. And here is the worst part. If this is a simulation, and you know it, but you keep living as if it isn't, are you not already complicit in your own illusion? So, if the world is false and the pain is real, why are you still pretending to play? Eternal return, the prison of infinite repetition. Imagine this moment right now, looping back. Everything you've ever done, every word you've ever spoken, every mistake you regret, and every breath you took without noticing. Repeating dot forever. This is the eternal return. An ancient idea resurrected most violently by Friedrich Nietzsche. He didn't whisper it, he dared you to face it. What if your life, exactly as it is, repeats itself endlessly across the vastness of time, not as metaphor, not as a myth, but literally dot every time you choose suffer, rejoice. The same script rewrites itself over and over. Not just this life. This exact version of this exact life. No edits, no second draft, no mercy. You will read these words again. You already have dot in a universe governed by finite particles and infinite time. Every configuration must reoccur. This is not mysticism, it's statistical mechanics, a cosmic inevitability. The Poincare recurrence theorem tells us that any system with finite energy and volume will, given enough time, return arbitrarily close to its original state. Given enough time, your entire life will reboot down to the moment you first wondered if that was possible. Eternal return means every tragedy, every heartbreak, every breathless scream into the night sky will come again. You can't escape. You can only repeat. You may object, but I forget each time. But forgetting does not absolve. Ignorance does not negate. You are not asked to remember only to endure dot forever. Dot Nietzsche asks, would you live differently if this life were to be lived eternally? But even this is a trap. It offers no way out. Live better? It changes nothing. You still repeat. Your highest virtue, your lowest cruelty, both loop. You think death is release? Death is only another page in the script. Another line reset for the next iteration. You will die again. The same way, with the same regrets, the same people absent, at your bedside. And it will feel new every time. But it never is. This is not reincarnation. There is no growth in return. No new lessons. No karma. Only perfect stasis in eternal motion. The wheel spins, not upward, but around dot. Now consider the implications. If the worst night of your life will repeat infinitely, can you forgive yourself for surviving it the first time? And what of the good moments? That one memory you cling to, the one that brings warmth in the dark, yes, even that is trapped, forced into meaninglessness by the sheer weight of repetition. 1 billion times relived, its sparkle dissolves into statistical noise. Is no value in infinity. Dot everything sacred becomes profane through repetition. Even you dots. So why struggle? Why hope? Why build anything if it's all doomed to collapse and reassemble in the same fragile pattern? Because you are not being tested. You are being looped. Dot. And now, the final cruelty. If the eternal return is true, then you've already accepted it an infinite number of times. You've already lived this despair. You've already reached this point with these exact thoughts. An infinite number of times. You scream into the abyss, and the echo is yourself from the last cycle. And the next dot. So then ask, if you've already suffered this infinity, what exactly are you trying to escape now? The problem of other minds. No one was ever with you. You are not alone in this room. You believe this because you've been told that others exist, that they feel, suffer, dream, ache like you do. That behind each pair of eyes is another world looking back. But what if that's a lie? What if no one else is conscious? This is the problem of other minds, one of the darkest riddles in philosophy. It is not a question of social anxiety, nor a fear of loneliness. It is the brute and unresolvable fact that you can never access anyone else's consciousness, not partially, not hypothetically, not at all. You look into someone's eyes, you hear their pain, you witness their joy. But these are only behaviors, correlations, gestures of emotion, not the experience itself. They tell you they're hurting. But what is their hurt? Can you feel it? Can you know it? You can't. You infer. It based on tone, based on reaction, based on your memory of your own suffering. But what if there's nothing behind the mask? The philosopher Thomas Nagel asked, what is it like to be a bat? Not to describe a bat, not to examine it, but to be it. The answer is silence. You cannot. No. You can only imagine Dot, and if you cannot imagine the mind of a bat, can you truly grasp the mind of another human? The person you love, the person who raised you, the person whose hand you held while they wept. You saw their tears, but you didn't feel them. You felt your own reaction to them. A private storm locked in your skull. There is no bridge, Dot, and worse, there is no way to prove the bridge is even needed, because maybe they were never conscious at all, Dot. Maybe they only performed consciousness. Consider the philosophical. Zombie, a creature identical to you in every way. Same biology, same behavior, same voice, but empty. No internal life, no awareness. It says, I'm scared, but there is no fear-only programmed output. Now look around. How do you know anyone isn't a philosophical zombie? You don't. You can't. And if the people around you are capable of mimicking your emotions without feeling them, then what have you loved? A function, a script, a hallucination of connection. Modern neuroscience has only deepened the wound. We can detect activity, blood flow, brain waves, but these are correlates, not consciousness. The neural correlates of consciousness, NCCs, remain just that, correlates, not causes, not evidence. Consciousness remains invisible, Dot, and the tragedy is this: you are the only thing in your universe with access to experience. You alone carry the unbearable weight of being certain that you exist, that you feel, that you hurt. Everyone else? They're educated guesses. Loving them is a risk. Trusting them is a bet. Mourning them is a soliloquy. They may have never been real, and even if they are truly, deeply conscious, you will never know them. Your skull is a prison. Sound leaks in, light bleeds through, but their essence, it never reaches you. You think you have touched souls, but your fingers only ever brushed the surface, Dot. So ask yourself, how much of your life have you spent speaking to mirrors? How many confessions have you offered to shadows? And how much longer will you pretend there's someone on the other side of the glass? The trolley problem, the ethics of your own murder. You stand beside the lever. On one track, 5 strangers, unaware, frozen in fear. On the other, one person, someone you love. A friend, a sibling, yourself. The trolley barrels forward. Indifferent, Dot, what do you do? The trolley problem is not a riddle about trains. It's a philosophical razor, honed to shred your morality into parts, to show you that ethics, when tested under pressure, becomes violence in disguise. You pull the lever, you kill. You don't, you let die. Either way, someone ends beneath the wheels. The thought experiment was meant to reveal how we weigh lives. Utilitarianism would say, save the 5, greater good. greater numbers. The math is easy, but what happens when the one is your child, your mother, you? Now the numbers blur. Emotion invades. Suddenly, the value of a life is not objective. It's weighted. Not ethical, but personal. And what does that say about your sense of justice? That it bends when it's close to home. And if ethics bends, was it ever real? You may claim you'd sacrifice yourself, noble, clean, but that's still a choice. Still ego cloaked in virtue, because it makes you the hero of the story. What if the person on the track is you, but the one behind the lever is someone else? Would you still think the sacrifice makes sense? Now change the frame. You are the trolley dot your existence hurtles forward, consequences rippling in all directions. Every choice you make cuts someone down. Every word saves one, damns another. Every moment of inaction another life, crushed by your silence. You do not escape the lever by ignoring it. You are always choosing. Even your neutrality is a choice. Even your silence, a scream. The philosopher Judith Jarvis Thompson twisted the knife deeper. Suppose you are not choosing between lives, but actively pushing someone off a bridge to stop the trolley. Still utilitarianism. Still greater good, but now your hands are bloody. Still feel like the moral high ground. You justify. You compartmentalize. But ethics, like identity, begins to rot under scrutiny. There are versions of the trolley problem that test loyalty, race, guilt, reputation, anonymity. In every case, what matters shifts. Your values morph depending on context. So what is the real you? The one who saves 5? The one who spares 1? The one who watches and walks away? And what if the entire world is built on versions of this experiment? Governments, corporations, wars, budgets, policies, every system designed to maximize benefit while accepting acceptable losses. You live in a trolley world. And every day, someone is crushed beneath the wheels so you can keep moving. Are you willing to admit that? Are you willing to admit that sometimes you are the one pulling the lever? And here's the final horror. If morality is this malleable, this circumstantial, this fragile, then what if right and wrong were never more than well-dressed instincts begging for justification? The paradox of the heap. Where do you end? Take a heap of sand. Now remove 1 grain. Is it still a heap? Yes. Remove another. Still a heap? Yes. Keep going. 1 grain at a time. At which exact moment does the heap become not a heap? You don't. No. You can't know. This is the Sorites paradox, the absurdity of vague categories. It haunts not just language, but identity. Because if a heap loses its heapness imperceptibly, what about you? What about when you lost the child in? You? The innocence? The laughter? Which breath, which moment, which cell marked the line? You can't name it, but it happened, and it never stops. Who you are is a collection, a heap of memories, traits, molecules, habits. So when do you stop being you? If you suffer brain damage, are you still you? If your memories fade, where did you go? If you grow, change, shed habits, reverse beliefs, apologize for things your younger self thought were truth, are you still you? Or did that version die somewhere quietly between 2 uneventful days? And if you can die without dying, then how many times have you already disappeared? If the boundary between person and non-person is as vague as the boundary between heap and non-heap, then identity is not a state, it's an illusion drawn by convenience. Now look at society. At law, at punishment. We convict people based on the belief that they are the same person who committed the crime. But what if they're not? Not metaphorically, not spiritually. What if, through enough psychological erosion or neurological change, they are no longer the same heap? Then who are we punishing? And what if the you reading this right now would be horrified by the you from 10 years ago, or horrified by the you 10 years from now, then who gets to claim ownership of your life? No one, because the you that woke up today is a slightly different arrangement of thoughts and cells than the one who went to sleep. Ship of Theseus again, but now is a bleeding wound. The heap is you, and the grains fall off constantly. You are not one thing. You are a process in slow collapse, moment by moment, becoming a stranger. You try to hold on to a name, a personality, a history, but those are narrative labels, not substance. You are no, more consistent than a cloud is solid. But the world demands clarity, definitions, boundaries. They ask, who are you? And you lie. You pick a version, a grain, a pattern, and you pretend it's whole. But deep down, you feel the shifting dot. So, tell me, if you can't even define when a heap disappears, how can you be sure you haven't already vanished? The problem of free will. You are never choosing, you believe you choose. You stand at the crossroads, face tilted toward some imagined horizon, and say, I picked this path. You feel the weight of responsibility, the pride of progress, the guilt of regret. But what if you never chose anything? This is the problem of free will, and its collapse is not philosophical poetry. It is mechanical, neurological, and inarguable. Let's begin in the flesh. In the 1980s, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet measured brain activity during voluntary actions. He discovered that the brain initiated movement before the subject became consciously aware of the decision. In other words, your brain decided before you did. The readiness potential, a pulse of activity occurs hundreds of milliseconds before. You think, I'll move my finger. The finger was already moving. You just caught up. And this isn't a trick of timing. It is a dagger to the throat of autonomy. Free will implies that you are the origin of your actions, that you could have done otherwise. But if your decisions are products of unconscious mechanisms running behind the curtain, then what part of you is free? Let's go deeper. Everything you think, every desire, every instinct comes from prior causes, your genes, your upbringing, your traumas, your culture, your neurochemistry. You didn't choose your parents. You didn't choose your childhood. You didn't choose the patterns that formed in response. And yet, those patterns are you. They make your preferences. They guide your love, your hate, your impulse to stay silent, or to speak. Where is the freedom in this chain? You might say, but I feel free. Of course you do. The illusion is seamless. Like a movie that hides the projector, consciousness hides the machinery. But feeling isn't proof. Feeling is how the trap is maintained. A computer feels nothing, but it runs code. So do you. Even quantum randomness offers no escape. If particles behave unpredictably, that doesn't make you free. It makes you random. Are you comforted by the idea that your decisions might just be cosmic dice rolls? Free will is not randomness. Free will is authorship. And you are not the author. You are the book. So what happens to morality? If you didn't choose your actions, how can you be blamed? If the killer was broken by trauma and chemistry, if the liar was built from abandonment and fear, are they guilty or just inevitable? And what of you? Are you proud of your virtues? You shouldn't be. They were gifted or programmed into you. Your kindness, your patience, your discipline, just echoes of inputs and inherited luck. You want to believe in agency because without it, love is coincidence. Justice is performance. Change is delusion. But even your need to believe in free will was not chosen. It emerged in you like a reflex. We're compelled to want freedom. That was your first chain. So now, reflect on every turning point in your life, every decision you agonized over, every fork in the road you thought you navigated with reason, with will, with soul. and ask yourself if. Your choices were just dominoes set in motion long before you were born. Who exactly have you been trying to become? The myth of progress. You've gone nowhere. You think you've evolved, that the world has moved forward, that humanity has climbed out of the cave and into enlightenment, that each generation brings us closer to truth, justice, and clarity. But what if that's just a prettier illusion? What if progress is a circle? You were told history is a line, a story with a direction. Civilizations rise, science advances, morality expands. But look closer. Strip away the modern costumes, the digital masks. What changes, really? The same. Wars, the same greed, the same rituals disguised by new language. You think AI is new? It's just another idol, another oracle, whose outputs are treated as divine. You think democracy is new? Ancient Athens tried it, and it rotted the same way. Into manipulation, into noise, into mob rule. Technology evolves, but humans, they repeat. You believe that progress is measured in gadgets and connectivity. But what has all your connection made you? Kinder? Wiser? Or just more distracted? You can summon the entire world to your screen, yet feel more alone than the first. Humans staring at the stars, begging for meaning. We think we're more enlightened than our ancestors, but we still kill each other over flags and fairy tales. We still chase illusions of power. We still ask children what they want to be, as if they must become something to matter. We are not wiser. We are simply faster. Faster to destroy. Faster to forget. Even your inner life, you think, has matured. You tell yourself, I've grown. I've improved. But isn't that just another performance? You label one set of neuroses immature and another set growth. It's still you, still confused, still afraid. And the systems we build, governments, schools, economies, aren't engines of progress. They are scaffolds built around our weaknesses, propped up walls trying to contain the animal inside. The civilized world is not a victory. It's a barely managed failure. And even the pursuit of knowledge, science, philosophy, reason, what has it really uncovered? Dark matter, uncertainty, observer effects, incompleteness theorems. We dig and we find voids. We explain and we discover contradictions. Every answer spawns more questions. Every certainty dies in the arms of another paradox. We are not discovering truth. We are rearranging confusion. You measure time by clocks and calendars, but deep time laughs at those toys. The Earth is 4 billion years old. Your species has existed for a blink. Your cities are infants. And your ideas of progress? Dust. Whole civilizations believed they were the apex. Egypt, Rome, the Ming. They built monuments to prove their permanence. They vanished anyway. So will we, and all our progress? A fragile skin stretched over the same old bones, the same tribal instincts, the same fear of death, the same worship of control. You are not moving forward. You are walking in a circle, blindfolded, telling yourself the path is straight because you're too terrified to admit otherwise. So ask yourself, if all your movement was only repetition, what exactly have you escaped from? Except the illusion that you're getting anywhere? Gigel's incompleteness, the lie of consistency. You want truth. You crave certainty, a foundation, a system logical, clean, complete, where answers follow rules and meaning flows from order. But what if logic itself is broken? In 1931, Kurt Gödel proved something that shattered mathematics and, by extension, all formal systems. Any sufficiently complex system of rules cannot be both complete and consistent. This is Gigel's incompleteness theorem. Let that bleed into you. It means, in any logical system capable of expressing arithmetic, There are true statements that cannot be proven within that system. Worse, if the system can prove every true statement, it will inevitably prove false ones too. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot have total truth and internal safety. You must choose between knowing everything and being certain. And once you choose, the other dies. This isn't a math problem. This is a map of your mind's architecture. Everything you trust reason, deduction, order, it's built on an illusion of completeness that cannot exist. You think logic is your shield. It's not. It's a knife with no handle. Suppose you build a belief system, a philosophy, a religion, a scientific worldview. You carefully define terms, establish rules, build upward. It seems airtight. Then Gell whispers, if it's airtight, it can't explain itself. To prove your foundation, you must step outside it. But then you're in another system, with its own assumptions and its own unprovable truths. You are forever leaping, system to system, chasing a proof that cannot exist. Every truth you believe rests on a question you cannot answer. Even arithmetic, the cleanest, most basic logic, fails to explain itself. The moment you have 1 + 1 = 2, you're already standing on an unprovable floor. And now imagine this. What if your mind is just another formal system, bound by syntax, rules, limits. Then Gödel applies to you. There are thoughts you can form, but not prove. Truths you feel, but cannot express. You carry like a tumor that no logic can surgically remove, and that's not failure. That's design. The trap isn't broken. It's perfect. So you compensate. You simplify. You say, this makes sense to me. You ignore the recursive chasm beneath your beliefs. You pretend that coherence is the same as truth, but coherence is just internal agreement, a closed loop, a system talking to itself. You can believe in a perfectly consistent worldview only by not looking too closely. This is why people kill for ideologies, because their system must be defended. If it cracks, the whole edifice crumbles, and behind it is nothing but unprovable void. So we cling. We armor ourselves in dogma. Scientific, religious, political. Not because they are true, but because they let us pretend. Incompleteness doesn't exist, but it does. And it always has. So here's your cage. You want truth, but your mind is structured so that the most fundamental truths about itself are forever unreachable. You are not just blind, you are blind to your blindness. And the more you try to prove you are right, the more Gödel tightens the loop, reminding you that every step of logic leads nowhere. So now ask yourself, if even your deepest truths are incomplete, what part of you ever really knew anything at all? The observer effect. Reality waits to be watched. You look at the world, and you believe it exists independently of you. The stars would still shine without your eyes. The ocean would still rise without your breath. The wind would still scream over empty mountaintops even if no one were alive to hear it, wouldn't it? But what if the universe waits for you? What if nothing becomes real until it's observed? This is the horror nested in quantum mechanics, the observer effect. A particle's behavior isn't fixed until something looks at it. Light behaves like a wave. Until you measure it. Then it collapses. It decides to act like a particle. Not before, not during, only after you interfere. The act of observation changes the state of what you observe. So then ask, what is the world doing when you're not watching it? Is it still there? Is there a there at all? We like to imagine a continuous world ticking along, mindless of us. But at the smallest levels, the actual fabric of reality, this assumption dissolves. At the quantum scale, particles exist in probabilities, superpositions, shadows of themselves. They are not things. They are possibilities. Until you watch, and once you do, they choose. But why? Is your observation causing the collapse? Or is it merely the trigger? Wheeler's delayed choice experiment makes it worse. It suggests that a particle's past behavior depends on how you measure it in the present. That is not a metaphor. What you choose to observe now affects what the universe did in the past. Retrocausality. Time fractured, meaning reality is not only uncertain, it's recursive. It folds backward. It bends around your awareness. What does that make you? Not a passive spectator, but a participant. You are woven into the equation. Not a mind trapped in a world, but a condition of the world. The double-slit experiment proves this. A photon goes through both slits until you place a detector. Then it chooses one. Why? No one knows. What's watching matters. And this doesn't stop at physics. Your observation changes people. You watch someone, they change. You speak their name, they adjust. You witness an event, and it becomes part of history. Not because it happened, but because you saw it happen. Even yourself only coheres under the gaze of another. Without eyes upon you, your identity collapses into formless thought. You have always existed in performance. But here's the inversion. You are also being watched. The act of observation defines reality. So what observes you? A god? A system? A mirror of your own perception? Or worse, what if nothing watches? What if, when you aren't looking, the world falls into quantum fog? And what if you fall with it? Your body, your past, your memory. Just a wave function waiting to be noticed again. You turn your head, and the world builds itself in real time. Like a video game optimizing performance, the system only renders what's in your field of view. Look away, and the code turns to Miss Dot. So how much of your world is real? How much of it ever was? And if reality must be watched to exist? The teletransportation paradox. You've died before imagine a machine. You step inside. It scans your body down to the last atom, your brain, your memories, your every neural connection. It destroys the original and recreates you elsewhere. Instantly. Same voice, same thoughts, same love, same pain. You step out. No one can tell the difference, not even you. But here's the question. Did you survive? This is the teletransportation paradox, and it annihilates your concept of continuity. Because what is you? Is it your body? Your atoms? They change every 7 years. Is it your mind? But your mind can be copied. Is it your consciousness? Then where is it? Point to it. Measure it. Show me the thread that holds the real you together. You can't. So. The machine kills the original and rebuilds you perfectly somewhere else. You say, but it's still me. Is it? What if the original never stepped into the machine at all, but was simply killed, and an exact replica was made? You wouldn't know. The replica would believe it's you. It would cry for the same people. It would remember this moment. It would scream in pain when hurt, and it would swear it was the original. But the one who stepped into the scanner is gone. So now ask yourself, what is the difference between that machine and the way you sleep? Your brain loses consciousness. It resets neural rhythms. You wake up and pick up the narrative like a thread, but the thread was cut. Did you die last night? Are you just a copy of someone who lived yesterday? You assume continuity because the story continues, because memory lingers. But memory is not survival. It's data, and data can be replicated. If someone built a replica of you down to the last synapse, would it be you? Would it love your family? Would it feel your guilt? Would it mourn the same tragedies? Yes, would it be you? No one knows, but now here is the deeper wound. Every second, Your cells die and regenerate. Your neurons rewire. Your thoughts shift. What you call you is a swarm, a constantly updated system. And yet you cling to the idea of a self unchanging, consistent, whole dot. There is no whole dot. There is only the illusion of wholeness. There is only the replica that emerges every moment from the last, convincing itself that nothing has changed. You are not you. You are what remains after the last version. Vanished. The ship of Theseus wasn't just philosophical furniture. It was prophecy, a warning. Replace one board at a time. And you think it's the same ship, but the ship is gone. And so, are you Dot? So let's return to the teleporter. Would you step inside, knowing what you now know? Or would you refuse and watch? A perfect copy emerge without you? A copy that smiles and says, "Of course I'm real. I remember everything." Just like you will tomorrow, Dot. So ask yourself, if every version of you insists it's the original, how do you know the real you wasn't lost long ago? The antinatalist argument. You shouldn't have been born. You are taught that life is a gift, that existence, despite its pain, is meaningful, that to be alive is better than to not be, that suffering has purpose. But what if all of that was a lie? Antinatalism is the belief that bringing sentient beings into existence is morally wrong, because to be born is to suffer, and suffering, unlike pleasure, cannot be justified by consent. You did not ask to exist. You were not consulted, and yet here you are, forced into a game with no rules, no exit, and no guaranteed pleasure, only the certainty of pain, confusion, and death. Philosopher David Beneder offers a brutal asymmetry. The absence of pain is good, even if no one experiences it. But the absence of pleasure is not bad, unless someone is deprived of it. Dot. So if you're never born, you never suffer. No need unmet. No agony endured. But if you are born, suffering is inevitable. Disease, loneliness, aging, loss. No one escapes. So then, was your birth an act of love or violence? Parents often say they had children to feel love, to carry on the family, to give life meaning. But these are reasons for the parent, not the child. The child is thrown into a world not for their own benefit, but to satisfy the emotional needs of others. You were created to serve someone else's story, and that story will last. And no matter how beautiful your memories, how deep your connections, death dissolves them. Your name will fade, your lineage will break, your works will be forgotten. The sun will burn out. You are a temporary pattern in dust, sentenced to hope and then to loss. Some argue that life has joys, that laughter and love make it worth it. But does a moment of joy undo a year of grief? Would you trade your worst pain for someone else's pleasure? Then why do we demand it from the unborn? You might say, but I'm glad I exist. But this is Stockholm Syndrome, your mind making peace with a reality it never chose. If you had not been born, you would not miss life. You would not regret absence. Non-existence carries no suffering. Existence always does, and yet we glorify life. We tell people who are suffering to be grateful. We tell the dying to live each day to the fullest. We invent meaning to mask the absurdity. But these are distractions. You are here because someone wanted you to be, not because it was better for you. They gambled your suffering against a chance at happiness and didn't ask for your opinion. Even now, every breath you take is borrowed. Every moment forward is a cliff. You will lose everyone you love, or they will lose you. This is not a risk. It is a guarantee. So the antinatalist does not scream in anger. They whisper in mourning. Because to be born is to be betrayed, to open your eyes and realize you were pushed into a world where pain is not just possible, but promised. So then ask yourself, If not existing harms no one, then why were you forced to exist at all? The illusion of time. You are never moving forward. You think time flows, that there is a past you can remember, a present you are living, and a future rushing toward you. A line, smooth and unstoppable. You anchor your life in this. Current decisions behind, destiny ahead. But what if time doesn't flow? What if it isn't a line? What if the passage of time is only your perception collapsing a frozen universe into the illusion of movement? This is not science fiction. It's physics. Block universe theory, a real consequence of Einstein's theory of relativity, proposes that all moments in time already exist. The past, the present, the future, each frozen, eternal, unchanging dot. You are not moving through time. You are simply experiencing a fixed position within a four-dimensional block like a bead of awareness, traveling along a frozen thread. But the thread doesn't move. It already is dot, and worse. Your perception of now is arbitrary dot in special relativity. Simultaneity is relative. There is no universal now. Two observers can disagree on whether events happened at the same time, and both can be correct. That means what is present for you might be past or future for someone else. So what, then, is the present? An illusion. A local hallucination projected by your mind onto the infinite structure of space-time. You never left your childhood. It's still there. You never reached today. It was always here. You never become anything you only think you are, because your brain stitches static moments into a fake narrative of becoming. Your life is not unfolding. It is already unfolded. You are reading these words in a fixed frame of existence. And another version of you, younger, sadder, smaller, is frozen in another, not memory, not metaphor. Reality. Time is not a river. It is a landscape. And you are not a traveler. You are a statue, convinced it can walk. Now think about death. The future exists just as concretely as the present. Then your death is already real. You are already dead, just not in the part of the timeline your mind currently inhabits. There is a version of you taking your final breath as you read this. There is a version of you who was never born because you never existed in the present. To imagine it. You are everywhere and nowhere. Your past selves didn't become you. They are you. Your future self won't become something new. It is already etched, immutable, unreachable. And every feeling you've ever had, the worst pain, the greatest joy is still happening. It never stopped. It never will. The memory is not an echo. It's a photograph inside a building you cannot enter. So when you say, time heals all wounds, what you really mean is, I've moved to a different room where the wound is not bleeding anymore. But that room still exists. The blood is still on the floor. And if nothing in the universe truly changes, if all is static and pre-written, then what does that make your freedom? What does that make your regrets? What does that make your hopes? So ask yourself, if the future has already happened, what exactly are you still waiting for? The brain in a vat. You've never touched the world. You reach out and feel the world. Your fingers trace the texture of a table. Your skin absorbs sunlight. Your ears catch a distant voice. And you think, this is real. But what if it's not? What if your entire experience is fabricated? The brain in a vat thought experiment asks a horrifyingly simple question. How do you know you're not a brain? Floating in a tank of fluid, connected to a computer that feeds you false sensations? You laugh. It sounds absurd. But examine it closer. Brain already doesn't experience the world directly. It interprets electrical signals passed from your senses. Your eyes don't see light. They convert photons into neural pulses. Your skin doesn't feel heat. It transmits stimuli. Your ears don't hear sound. They deliver vibrations. All your brain ever gets is data. And if that data were perfect fed by wires instead of nerves, how would you know the difference? You wouldn't. There is no test, no peek behind the curtain, because every test would be part of the simulation. Every revelation, another line of code. Ren e acute. Descartes tried to defeat this centuries ago. He imagined an evil demon deceiving him, controlling his senses. And he concluded, I think, therefore I am. But what are you? What is the I that exists? A mind, isolated, disembodied, watching a false movie through a false window. You don't need a vat. You already live in one. Your skull, your prison, everything you've ever known is secondhand. You've never touched the real world. You've only touched interpretations. And if your experiences are simulations, perfect or imperfect, what value does reality even hold? Do you care if your joy was artificial? Do you care if your grief was programmed? You say yes, but every night you dream, and in those dreams you are tricked. You run, fall, scream, weep, and only when you wake do you say, that wasn't real. But while dreaming, it was. The Matrix didn't invent this horror. It just dramatized it. Plato's cave said it first. Chained humans see shadows on a wall and think it's the whole universe. Now look around. Shadows on screens. Shadows in your memory. Shadows in every word spoken to you by someone whose mind you cannot enter. Your life is a theater of shadows. And here's the part you can't escape. Even if you're not in a vat, even if the world is real, your access to it is still virtual. You are always a step removed. You are always in the cave. So when you say, I know the world, what you really mean is, I know what my mind says the world is. You've never touched anything, not directly, not once. And if that's true, if your body, your memories, your very self could be illusions crafted by an external system or by your own faulty neurons, then what makes you certain you were ever born at all? The simulation hypothesis. You are a character in someone else's game. Your hands feel real. You read these words with eyes that blink, that water, that age. You feel hunger, heat, desire, regret, and you believe fiercely that this world you inhabit is physical, external, and original. But what if it's none of those things? What if you're inside a simulation? Not metaphorically, literally. This is the simulation hypothesis, most famously articulated by philosopher Nick Bostrom. And it doesn't say we might be in a simulation. It says it's likely. Why? Because if a civilization survives long enough to develop powerful computing, and if that civilization becomes curious about its own past, as we are, then it will simulate that past millions of times. Not just one simulation, billions, entire histories, entire populations, and statistically overwhelmingly, any consciousness you experience is more likely to be one of those simulations than the original. You are more likely to be imagined than born. Let that calcify. Everything around you, your body, your memories, your childhood trauma, your mother's voice could be code. Not symbols on a screen, not pixelated fiction, but detailed, quantum-level precision simulations, indistinguishable from reality. And if you can't tell the difference, what difference is there? Your gods, your laws, your heartbreak, your fears, they may be part of a testing script. You might be a node in a physics experiment, a morality study, a curiosity, an echo. And the worst part? You would never know. A good simulation would be indistinguishable from its reference. In fact, that's the point. Somewhere, the one who wrote your reality might be watching. Or not. You might be an abandoned instance, a drifting sandbox, a forgotten experiment running on autopilot. Maybe that deja vu you felt? A glitch. That sudden memory you don't remember creating? A reload. That dream where everything was vivid, realer than real? A corrupted line of code bleeding into your waking world. And if you're in a simulation, then every discovery you've ever made is artificial. Every scientific law encoded. Every paradox designed. The speed of light? A ceiling programmed into. The physics engine. You don't discover truth. You uncover settings. But even if you believe the world is not simulated, even if you believe it's original, you must admit we are already building simulations.ai models, neural networks, virtual environments. What happens when we simulate consciousness? When those simulations begin to ask, am I real? Will we tell them? Will they know? And if our simulations can't tell they're fake, then what gives you the right to believe you're real? You trust your senses, but your senses can be deceived. Trust memory, but your memory is editable. You trust your sense of identity, but identity can be simulated. So now tell me, if this is a simulation, what is you? A line of code? A temporary routine? A character in someone else's experiment? Reading a script it thinks it chose? So then ask if your every thought could be just another subroutine. What part of you ever belonged to you at all? The Fermi paradox, the silence that screams. You look up at the stars and you feel small, but not alone. You assume somewhere out there, other minds are watching their skies too. Civilizations, consciousness, beings who wonder. But the sky stares back with silence. This is the Fermi paradox. If the universe is so vast, billions of galaxies, each with billions of stars, many older than the sun, then where is everyone? Why haven't we seen them, heard them? Why is the cosmic stage empty? There are hundreds of explanations. None are comforting. Some say we're early, that we're the first spark in a cold void, destined to one day ignite with voices. But the universe is ancient. Stars have burned and died before Earth ever formed. We are not early. Others say civilizations destroy themselves. That once a species masters nuclear weapons, AI, resource extraction, it engineers its own extinction. Intelligence as a terminal illness. So maybe they were here and they're gone. Or maybe they're hiding because something hunts. What if the silence isn't absence, but fear? What if space is a dark forest and every civilization is a hunter, afraid to light a fire? What if the first one to speak dies? Now look at us. Broadcasting, shouting into the dark, sending maps, locations, signals. Maybe we're the naive ones. Maybe we're bait. Or maybe there is no one else. What if consciousness is rare? So rare that we are alone in billions of light years of dead rock and nuclear fire? Then your thoughts, your awareness is the only ripple in an ocean of stillness. You are not small. You are the only light in a room, the size of forever. But if that's true, why? Why this? Why you? Why does anything exist at all? You think evolution explains life, but it does not explain being. Biology may account for the body, but not for the experience of being inside it. You are not just a meat machine. You are the observer, the witness, the ghost in the fire. And if there's no one else, if the entire cosmos is empty, then who are you performing for? Maybe civilizations do rise. Maybe they do survive. But when they reach a certain level of intelligence, this level they collapse into silence. Not from destruction, from despair. They ask too many questions. They see too far. They realize the emptiness isn't temporary. It's structural, built into the bones of being. The more they understand, the less they speak, and the stars go quiet. Again, like us soon, like you. So now ask yourself, if the universe is empty and silent, then why were you given a voice that can scream? The problem of other minds. You're the only one here. You speak to others. You see their faces, hear their voices, watch their reactions. You imagine thoughts behind their eyes. You assume they have inner lives like you do. But what if they don't? What if no one else is conscious? This is the problem of other minds, the bleakest philosophical silence you've never truly faced. You cannot prove that anyone around you is actually aware. You cannot enter their mind. You cannot feel their presence. You infer it. But inference is not evidence. Everything you know about other people is filtered through behavior, facial expressions, words, laughter, tears. All of it can be mimicked, simulated, repeated without. Experienced a machine can say, "I love you." A parrot can say, "I'm sorry." A chatbot can say, "I understand." So who taught you to believe that your mother's kiss, your friend's voice, your partner's tears meant anything inside? You don't know. You never have. And you never will. This is not solipsism as a fantasy. It is solipsism as an unavoidable failure of knowledge. Your consciousness is the only one you know. Everything else? Story, assumption, projection. You walk through a world of masks, convinced there are faces beneath. But maybe the mask is all there is. Think about sleep, about the moment you lose consciousness. The world doesn't vanish, but for you, it ceases. You don't exist in any meaningful sense until the lights turn back on. So what if others never turned on? What if they only act awake? Even neuroscience cannot solve this. We can scan brains, map signals, measure activity, but no test can detect awareness. There is no consciousness meter, no litmus test for subjectivity. We can observe behavior, never experience. So your life becomes a theater. You perform, others perform, and everyone hopes it's real. But you can't. No, you assume your dog loves you. But what if it's mimicry? You assume your friends empathize. But what if they're just enacting patterns? You assume your lover suffers when you suffer. But what if it's just a mirror reflecting what you want to see? And here is the final fracture. You can't even be sure you were conscious a moment ago. Memory is unreliable. Awareness flickers. What if your mind only turns on at intervals and the rest is autopilot? What if you're not always there? What if you never were? And now imagine the inverse. What if everyone else is conscious and you're the one who isn't? What if the inner world you think is rich is just the echo of a script? There's no way to tell you are trapped in a room with no windows, watching shadows, hoping someone waves back. So ask yourself, if no one else is truly conscious, then who exactly have you been trying to connect with? The infinite monkey theorem. Everything you've ever thought was inevitable. You think your mind is special, that your thoughts are original, your feelings authentic, your words chosen with intention. But what if they were inevitable? What if everything you've ever said, written, loved, or feared was not only predictable, but mathematically guaranteed to emerge from randomness? The infinite monkey theorem is simple and devastating. Give a monkey a typewriter and infinite time, and it will eventually produce the complete works of Shakespeare. Not just once. Infinitely. It will also type your birth name, your journals, your deepest secrets. The moment you're reading this. And every possible alternate version of you. Every combination of every letter in every language, every philosophy, every confession, every goodbye is simply waiting to be randomly typed. Can you think? But that's absurd. That's just nonsense. Is it? The universe is not a handcrafted sculpture. It is a probabilistic explosion of possibilities. Every thought in your head is a pattern. Every pattern has a probability. And in a system with enough time, enough randomness, and no boundaries, everything happens. Not just once, but over and over. You exist somewhere in a trillion different forms. In some, you live. In others, you suffer. In others, you never existed. In others, you are reading these words in a language no human has ever spoken. And that is not fantasy. That is math. In an infinite system. The improbable is inevitable. So then, what is meaning? If your life, your grief, your triumph, your love, story were always going to be typed by accident somewhere, eventually do they still matter? If a monkey can write Hamlet, then what does that make Hamlet? If a random generator can produce your memoir, what does that make you? This is not just about monkeys. This is about you. Because your brain is a pattern generator. You are typing your own story moment by moment, believing you are choosing it. But statistically, you are just falling into one possible pattern, and all the others still exist. Your unique ideas, already written. Your rare pain, already printed. Your first love, just a sentence in a string of infinite drafts. You think creation is sacred, but in infinity, creation becomes repetition. Meaning collapses under abundance. So you retreat. You say, but I'm here now. This is real. This is mine. Is it? Or is it just one arrangement among endless noise? The only reason your life feels coherent is because your mind ignores the static. It assembles a narrative. It chooses the least chaotic path. But chaos remains. And somewhere in that chaos is a version of you that knows this. A version of you that screams into the void because they know they are not the first you. They are just the one who noticed. So ask yourself if your every thought is just one inevitability among infinite nonsense. What part of your life has ever truly belonged to you? The trolley problem. There is no right decision. You want to be a good person. You want to believe that when faced with a moral choice, there is a right answer. A clean one. A just one. That ethics is a map, and if you follow it carefully, you'll avoid the cliffs, but the map is torn, and every path leads somewhere broken. This is the trolley problem. A runaway trolley is heading toward 5 people tied to the tracks. You can pull a lever, diverting it to another track where it will kill 1 person instead. Do you pull the lever? If you do, you kill 1 to save 5. Simple math, but you cause that death. If you don't pull it, 5 die not because of your action, but because of your inaction. So you're trapped. Let 5 die or kill 1. Now replace the lever with a push. The 5 are still on the track. But this time, a large man stands next to you on a bridge. If you push him in front of the trolley, he'll stop it, but he'll die. Same math. 1 life to save 5. But now it feels different. More personal. More monstrous. Why? Because morality is not logic. It's narrative, emotion, proximity, bias, and the more you dig, the worse it gets. Imagine the 1 person is your child, or your partner, or you. Imagine the 5 are strangers or criminals, or clones of the same person. Does that change your answer? Why? The numbers didn't change, only the story. Morality, then, isn't about right and wrong. It's about what you can live with. There is no right decision. Only decisions that preserve the illusion of righteousness. You think ethics is rational, but your gut makes the rules. And your mind writes justifications afterward. This is not a flaw. It's how you're wired. Now think about your own life. The betrayals, the choices you regret, the people you hurt. You tell yourself you did your best. That given the information. You acted reasonably, but someone always suffers. Every path has victims. Every choice bleeds. Even doing nothing is a choice. Even silence is a weapon. Even kindness can cause harm when directed in the wrong direction. You can't escape this. You were born into a moral minefield with no map and no way to walk through it clean. And every time you move, something shatters. So, you simplify. You create rules. Never lie. Always help. But then you lie to protect someone. Then you help someone who hurts others. Then the rules collapse under context, and you are left with blood on your hands, whispering that you meant well. But meaning well doesn't undo damage, and saving 5 doesn't. Bring the 1 back. So ask yourself, if every decision ends in suffering, then what does it mean to be a good person at all? The experience machine. You've already chosen the lie. What if you could live your perfect life? What if, right now, you were offered a machine, a flawless simulator that could give you everything you've ever wanted? Success, love, peace, pleasure, adventure, immortality. All indistinguishable from reality. But once you entered, you'd never know it wasn't real. Would you plug in? This is Robert Nozick's experience machine, a philosophical test that strips you bare. Because it doesn't ask what you want, it asks what you're willing to lose to have it. And most people say no. They say, reality matters. That authenticity is more important than pleasure. That meaning comes from truth, not simulation. But these are just words, because look around. You've already plugged in. Every day, you trade reality for comfort. You medicate pain. You curate your feed. You filter your face. You choose movies over moments, echo chambers over challenge, safety over honesty. You don't want truth. You want a comfortable story, a version of reality that flatters you, one where your struggles are noble, your beliefs are righteous, your failures are justified. The machine isn't hypothetical. It's your life. And the truth is unbearable. Because you don't know what you've lost. You don't know if this is the real world. You don't know if the people you love are even conscious. You don't know if the values you cling to are your own or simulations you downloaded from culture, media, trauma. So what would change if it was a machine? Would you leave? Would you rip yourself out of comfort, even if it meant facing a barren, meaningless reality? Or would you beg to stay? People say, I want to live, not just exist. But what if living is indistinguishable from existing? What if the only thing separating them is your belief that you're awake? Even now, what are you doing? You are reading words on a glowing screen, absorbing patterns shaped by another mind, drifting into recursive thought, alone with your thoughts and the illusion of choice. You are deep in the machine already, and somewhere inside you, you know that you prefer it. You know that pain without meaning terrifies you, that pleasure without truth satisfies you, that you've chosen the dream over and over again because the alternative is silence. You would rather feel something than know something. You would rather be comfortably wrong than violently right. You've already answered the machine. You're inside it. You never even asked the question. So, ask yourself now, if the lie feels better than the truth, would you even want to wake up? Determinism. You never had a choice. You think you choose. You think your actions arise from free will. Your decisions carved from reason, emotion, intention. You believe you are the author of your life. But you are not. You are the reader, watching the words unfold. And the book was written long before you opened it. This is determinism, the idea that every event, including your thoughts, feelings, and choices, is the inevitable result of prior causes, your biology, your childhood, the weather, a stranger's glance, a missed bus, a neuron firing slightly too late. You call it free will. But you've never chosen anything. Not really. You didn't choose your parents. You didn't choose your brain. You didn't choose your trauma, your desires, your limits. Every belief you hold was given to you, or shaped by things you never controlled. Even your rebellion is pre-written. Say you resist. Say, I can do what I want. But what you want, where did that come from? You didn't build it. You discovered it, like a program realizing it has preferences. You think you're the programmer. You're the code. This isn't poetic. It's physics. If the universe operates by cause and effect, then everything is a domino, knocked over by the last dot, including you. Your choice to read this wasn't a choice dot. It was an inevitable conclusion of every moment before it. If you rewind time 1,000,000 times, you'll read it every time. And what about guilt, pride, regret? They rest on the illusion of agency. You say, I should have done better. But you couldn't. You didn't. The causes were already in motion. You can no more change your past action than the wind can choose not to blow. What about the murderer? The addict? The liar? Do they deserve blame? Or were they simply the product of causes beyond them? Genes, violence, loneliness, misfired neurons. And if you judge them, aren't you just following your own causes? Your upbringing? Your outrage? Blame collapses under determinism. So does credit. There are no heroes, no villains. Just stories unfolding precisely as they must. But we need the illusion. Without it, how do we live? How do we punish? How do we forgive? So we cling to the myth of free will, like a drowning man clings to air. We act as if we are choosing, as if we are responsible, as if the future is unwritten. But the future is already typed. You are just the cursor. And deep down, you know this. Every time you say, I couldn't help myself. Every time you say, that's just how I am. You know you're not driving. You're watching the wheel turn. So ask yourself, if you've never truly chosen anything, then who exactly do you think you are? The paradox of the self. There is no you say. I, every day. I am tired. I want more. I remember when. I love, I hate, I hope. But what is the I? Where is it? Point to it. You'll gesture to your chest, your head, your body. But your body is not constant. Your cells die and regenerate. Your memories shift. Your beliefs evolve. You are a process, not a person. A changing storm of thoughts pretending to be a sky. This is the paradox of the self. You experience continuity, but none exists. You claim to be one thing, but cannot find a single part of you that hasn't changed. Your body, replaced over and over. Your memories, corrupted, revised. Invented. Your personality, a reflection of your context, not a core. So then, what is this? You? Is it your mind? But your mind is not singular. It's a committee of voices, competing instincts, conflicting drives. Some of them ancient, reptilian. Others recent, socialized. You don't have one voice. You have many. And you've mistaken their argument for identity. Your preferences change. What you love today, you may hate tomorrow. Your deepest truths can become lies with time. The person you were 5 years ago, do they feel like you? Would you be friends with them? You shed selves like skin, but still you say, as if there's a thread tying all your versions together. There isn't. There's only narrative. You tell a story about your life. You stitch moments into a timeline. You say, that was me. I did that. But the narrator is not the character. The voice in your head is not the one who lived. It's the one who remembers and edits. And worse, that voice is not even yours. It's built from language you didn't invent. Words given to you. Definitions written by others. Scripts copied from parents, lovers, enemies. Even your inner monologue is borrowed. So now peel everything away. Name, the face, the memories, the voice. What's left? Nothing. No solid core. No unchanging soul. Just motion. Just electricity. Just the illusion of self-awareness, like a flame pretending to be the candle dot, and yet you cling to. I? Because to let it go is death. But death of what? Not your body. Not your memories. Just the idea that there was ever one person. Behind all this, you are a crowd. You are a habit. You are a shadow cast by a moving light, mistaking itself for the source dot. So ask yourself, if there is no real you, then who has been living your life all this time? The ship of Theseus, you were replaced piece by piece. Take a ship. Over time, its wooden planks rot. So one by one, they are replaced. Eventually, every part is new. Every nail, every board, every sail dot, is it still the same ship? Most say yes, because the change was gradual. Continuity is preserved dot, but now imagine this. Each original plank is saved. One by one, they're rebuilt elsewhere. The same shape, the same materials, the same design. Now there are two ships, which is the real ship of Theseus, the one rebuilt over time, or the one made of original parts? This is not just a thought experiment. This is you. Your body has replaced almost every cell it ever had. Your skin, your bones. Even your brain is not made of the same atoms it once was. You are the ship dot, so which version is real? The one with the original memories, or the one with the original matter? You want to say both, or neither, or that it doesn't matter. But it does, because your entire sense of identity, your pain, your name, your love is built on the assumption that you are still you. But you aren't. You are a replica, a sequence of reassembled matter pretending to be continuous dot and worse. There may be many of you. Every time you forget something, a version of you dies. Every time you change your mind, a new captain takes the wheel. You mourn your past as if it belonged to the same person. But the person who loved them, who failed them, who feared those things, that person is gone. They don't live in you. You only hold the echoes of their story. And yet, you insist on continuity. You say, I've changed, not I've been replaced. You say, I remember, not a different version of me once experienced this. But what is memory? It's a reconstruction, a performance, the mind's best guess at what happened. You don't recall moments. You recreate them. You don't remember who you were. You rehearse who you wish you were. And so the lie persists. Because to accept the truth would fracture you dot, would force you to admit that every day, the self you protected, justified, and believed in disappears dot. The self who loves them, gone. The self who made those mistakes, dead dot. The self who believed in that dream, buried in a version of you that no longer exists dot. So now ask yourself, if your self has been dismantled and replaced 1,000 times, why do you still believe there's anything left of the original at all? Boltzmann brains. You are a fluke that shouldn't exist. You believe in the universe, that it's vast, ancient, and ruled by laws. That stars form, life evolves, and minds emerge through complexity over time. That you are the inevitable product of billions of years of cosmic evolution. But the universe is not elegant dot. It is indifferent dot, and when left alone long enough, chaos becomes more likely than order. Enter the Boltzmann brain, a paradox from physics that exposes the crack in your very existence. That it begins with entropy. Entropy is the measure of disorder in a system, and left untouched, every system decays. Order dissolves. Complexity collapses into chaos dot, but sometimes random fluctuations create temporary order from disorder. Like a sandstorm randomly assembling a castle. It's unlikely, but given enough time infinity, perhaps it becomes inevitable. And the smaller the structure, the more likely it is to randomly emerge. So here's the horror. In a universe of infinite time and random fluctuations, it is far more likely that a fully formed brain complete with false memories, language, thoughts, and experiences will appear by chance for an instant, and for an entire universe to form, expand, cool, give rise to life, evolve intelligence, and produce you, the person reading this, are more likely to be a brief, isolated fluke, a Boltzmann brain floating in thermal noise, hallucinating, a reality that never existed. You may think you were born. You weren't. You may think you have a body. You don't. You may think you have memories. They're synthetic, stitched together from randomness. Right now, you're thinking, that can't be true. But that's what the brain would think, isn't it? It's programmed with the illusion of continuity, of sensation, of a physical world, of this sentence unfolding with each word. Even this fear, this exact moment of disbelief, is part of the hallucination. You could vanish in the next instant, and the real universe, the one you never knew, will continue, unaware that you ever flickered into being. No legacy. No history. Just a ripple of awareness in a sea of entropy. And now step back. If Boltzmann brains are more likely than you being real, and you cannot prove you are not one, then how do you know anything? Not just about the world, about yourself. You say, I'm thinking, therefore I am. But what if the thought itself is artificial? A temporary cascade of false experience. No body, no breath, no past, just a burst of ordered noise. You are a glitch, a cosmic typo, a flash of structure collapsing into non-existence, screaming that it was real. And if this is true, then every philosophy, every ethics, every story you've ever believed, all of it is fiction inside fiction. A narrative your neurons are whispering to themselves before dissolving forever. So, now ask yourself, if you are more likely to be a hallucination than a human, what makes you think there was ever a world? To hallucinate in the first place? Zeno's paradoxes. You never moved at all. You take a step, then another. You walk through space. You climb stairs. You fall. You fly. You run your fingers across a table. You believe motion is real, but motion is a lie you tell yourself. Because the math doesn't work. This is Zeno's paradox, a set of ancient arguments that remain unsolved at the level of pure logic. And at their core is this devastating idea. Motion is impossible. Begin with the dichotomy paradox. Before you can reach a destination, you must first get halfway there, then half of the remaining distance, then half again, forever. You can divide space into infinite parts. And if space is infinitely divisible, how do you ever arrive? To reach anywhere, you'd need to complete an infinite number of tasks, but you can't. So, by logic, you never arrive. Then there's Achilles and the tortoise. Achilles gives the tortoise a head start. He runs faster. But by the time he reaches where the tortoise was, the tortoise has moved a little farther. Again. Each time he reaches the tortoise's last position, it has moved ahead. Infinite steps. No end. And yet, in real life, Achilles passes the tortoise. You reach your destination. Your fingers meet the table. But do they? Or is it all an illusion? To resolve the paradox, modern mathematics invokes limits, the idea that infinite steps can converge to a finite distance. But that's not a physical answer. That's a trick of notation. The paradox still screams underneath. It tells you space is either infinitely divisible, in which case you can't move through it, or it's discrete, made of indivisible chunks, like pixels. But then movement isn't smooth. It's a stutter. You don't glide, you jump. Reality becomes digital. And in that case, You are not flowing through the world. You are being rendered, frame by frame, like a video game, not like a simulation. Your walk is an illusion of continuity produced by gaps you'll never perceive. Now, consider time. To move, time must pass. But what is time? A river? A sequence? A string of frozen moments stitched together like stop-motion animation? If time is continuous, you drown in infinities. If time is discrete, you don't move, you blink from one state to the next. No motion, just transformation. You've never moved. You've only changed poses, and your mind, desperate for coherence, says, I walked. But you didn't. The space between this sentence and the next was filled with infinite non-places. Infinite non-you. So, what is motion? A story. A fabrication. A comfort. You think you cross a room, but you never left the starting line. Your entire life may have occurred in a single frozen instant, like a photograph, dreaming it was a movie. And if that's true, if you've never truly moved, then your whole life, the first breath, the first kiss, the loss, the leaving, the return, it all happened nowhere. So ask yourself, if motion is impossible, and you've never actually traveled through space or time, then what do you think you've been doing all this time? The paradox of the present, the now that never was. You believe in the present, not the now, the moment, the breath between thoughts. You say, I'm here. You think this is real. But what is now? Can you find it? Can you hold it? You cannot, because by the time you say now, it's gone. The present is not a place. It's a vanishing point, a razor-thin edge between what no longer is and what has not yet happened. You can't measure it. You can't live in it. You can't even experience it. By the time light hits your eyes and sound enters your ears, the world has already moved on. You are always behind, always late. Your senses lie. Brain lags. There is no moment when you are perfectly synchronized with the world. No true now. Just a series of echoes, assembled into an illusion of presence. And yet we build our entire identities around it. We say, live in the moment. We meditate. We breathe. We chase nowness as if it can be caught, but it can't, because time doesn't stop for you. It never did. Einstein proved this when he showed that the present is relative. There is no universal now. Your now is not the same as someone moving near the speed of light. Simultaneity doesn't exist. There is no shared clock. Each mind floats in its own private stream of time. So, what does it mean to say, I exist? If you cannot grasp the present, then you exist only in lag, in approximation, in illusion. Even your thoughts are outdated. By the time you know you are thinking, you already did. You are not thinking in real time. You are remembering your thoughts milliseconds too late and pretending it's the present. And this means something worse. You can never touch reality. You can only touch its aftermath. You live in the ruins of the moment, always watching the smoke of time rise from an event that already burned. You chase the present like a ghost, and every time you try to catch it, when you speak, when you love, when you decide, you're only activating a chain of processes already in motion. You never acted. You only responded, and that response came too late. To matter. So if there is no present, no now to stand in, then you are not alive in the sense you imagined. You are a ripple, echoing down the hallway of time, mistaking your own fading shape for a solid self. So ask yourself, if the present is an illusion, then where, exactly, do you think your life is happening? Laplace's demon, you are always going to read this. Imagine a mind, a vast, calculating intelligence, immeasurable, all-seeing absolute. It knows the position of every atom, every particle, every vector in the universe. This mind is called Laplace's demon. And if it existed, It could predict everything. From the fall of empires to the flicker of your eyelids. From the formation of stars to the exact thoughts you would have as you read these words. There would be no uncertainty, no randomness, only inevitability. According to Pierre Simon Laplace, the future is not open. It is determined, fixed, a sequence of events locked in from the very beginning, like a film already shot, only now being played. If the demon knew the present state of the universe with perfect precision, it could reconstruct the entire past and calculate the entire future. So, what does that make you? A foregone conclusion. You are not choosing your life. You are executing it. You think you are making a decision. But the molecules in your brain are following chemical laws. The neurons firing are echoes of previous firings, shaped by genes, trauma, and thermodynamics. Your preferences, pre-installed. Your will. A mask for momentum. You are not the author of your story. You are its character, reciting lines you mistake for improvisation. Laplace's demon does not need to control you. You were never free. You say, but quantum mechanics introduces randomness. But randomness isn't freedom. It's just chaos. Rolling dice doesn't make you more autonomous. It just means you're at the mercy of another kind of uncertainty. And yet, your life feels open. You look ahead and imagine possibilities. But they're all illusions. There is only one path, one version of events, one line through time, traced by a cosmic hand you'll never see. You tell yourself stories about choice, about redemption, about change. But Laplace's demon laughs because it already knows the ending. And you reading this, breathing now, heart rising in your chest, are exactly where you are always going to be. You say, if everything is determined, then nothing matters. But isn't that just another thought the demon predicted? You cannot even rebel against your fate, because rebellion was part of the script. So was this despair. So was your attempt to escape it? You don't live your life. You unfold, like a flower opening exactly when the temperature rises. Exactly how. The pattern demands. And now think of everything you've ever blamed yourself for. Everything you regret. Everything you thought was your fault. What if none of it was? What if guilt is just another emotion, wired into you by evolution, ready to be triggered on cue? And if you are always going to feel it, then was it ever real? So now ask yourself, if your entire life was always going to happen exactly this way, then what part of you was ever really alive at all? The problem of other minds. You're the only one here. You speak to others. You see their faces, hear their voices, watch their reactions. You imagine thoughts behind their eyes. You assume they have inner lives like you do. But what if they don't? What if no one else is conscious? This is the problem of other minds, the bleakest philosophical silence you've never truly faced. You cannot prove that anyone around you is actually aware. You cannot enter their mind. You cannot feel their presence. You infer it. But inference is not evidence. Everything you know about other people is filtered through behavior, facial expressions, words, laughter, tears. All of it can be mimicked, simulated, repeated without. Experienced. A machine can say, I love you. A parrot can say, I'm sorry. A chatbot can say, I understand. So who taught you to believe that your mother's kiss, your friend's voice, your partner's tears meant anything inside? You don't know. You never have. And you never will. This is not solipsism as a fantasy. It is solipsism as an unavoidable failure of knowledge. Your consciousness is the only one you know. Everything else? Story, assumption, projection. You walk through a world of masks, convinced there are faces beneath. But maybe the mask is all there is. Think about sleep, about the moment you lose consciousness. The world doesn't vanish, but for you, it ceases. You don't exist in any meaningful sense until the lights turn back on Dot. So what if others never turned on? What if they only act awake? Even neuroscience cannot solve this. We can scan brains, map signals, measure activity, but no test can detect awareness. There is no consciousness meter, no litmus test for subjectivity. We can observe behavior, never experience Dot, so your life becomes a theater. You perform, others perform, and everyone hopes it's real, but you can't. No, you assume your dog loves you, but what if it's mimicry? You assume your friends empathize, but what if they're just enacting patterns? You assume your lover suffers when you suffer, but what if it's just a mirror reflecting what you want to see? And here is the final fracture. You can't even be sure you were conscious a moment ago. Memory is unreliable. Awareness flickers. What if your mind only turns on at intervals and the rest is autopilot? What if you're not always there? What if you never were? And now imagine the inverse. What if everyone else is conscious and you're the one who isn't? What if the inner world you think is rich is just the echo of a script? There's no way to tell Dot you are trapped in a room with no windows, watching shadows, hoping someone waves back Dot. So ask yourself, if no one else is truly conscious, then who exactly have you been trying to connect with?